Right. So, well, basic income as an instrument for justice and peace. Many people would say, not at all. A basic income is rather a recipe for injustice and conflict. And frankly, I can understand them. And you can understand them too. Just think for a moment. What these crazy basic income people want to do is use some of these scarce public resources not to improve a little bit more the benefits that are being given to the poor, but to give some of these public resources to the rich, to people who don't need these benefits and who are not even asking for it, for these benefits. So even the owner of O Globo will receive a basic income. He couldn't care less about it, and this is yet what basic income people want to do. Is that justice? And there is worse. Think about the following case. I just take two first names by lottery. So there's one guy called Fabio, and he works very hard. Every morning he gets up at 6 and he works all day, marking students, teaching, whatever. And there is another bloke called, say, Eduardo. And what does Eduardo do? He spends all day reading poetry by Goethe and singing songs by Bob Dylan, occasionally handing out a few kids' booklets, and doing nothing the rest of the day. Can't you understand Fabio, who thinks, well, this guy, these crazy basic income people want to give an income without any counterpart to this guy who spends his day singing Bob Dylan, while Fabio is working all day, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and so on. So Fabio looks at the other guy singing and he thinks, what a free rider, just living off my hard work. Is that justice? So can't you sympathize with the people who say, well, basic income is not an instrument for social justice, it's a recipe for injustice? Is there a response to this? Yes, otherwise I wouldn't be here today. But the response, as many of us have experienced, is not that easy to go. It's not that easy to give and to make people understand. So, for the first case, so why do we give an income, a benefit to even the owner of O Globo? Well, we have to explain to people that by giving this basic income even to the rich, we are not going to make the rich richer than they are before, because obviously, one way or another, the rich are going to pay for their basic income themselves. And this can be done in such a way that the effective rates of taxation on them will be just equivalent with the basic income and in a situation without a basic income. The reason why we want to give this income to the rich, this benefit to the rich, has nothing to do with making the rich richer than they are, but it's because it's better for the poor to give also this benefit to the rich. And you are familiar then with the various aspects of this, stigmatization, the trap that is being created, the low rate of take-up in the case of conditional benefits, etc. But every time, it needs to be explained again. And depending on the people you talk to, sometimes an anecdote will help. For other people, a graph will be essential to make them understand. For some people, even some equations will be needed. But it's a constant pedagogical job to explain them. What about the second problem? The worst one, the Fabio versus Eduardo case. Well, there again, it's not that easy. So it's not that easy to make people understand that also for the hard workers at the bottom end of the range, this will make a difference to them, because they too will receive this unconditional basic income, and that will increase their power, their bargaining power. That means that some jobs will no longer be taken by these people. They will have to be improved, or they will have to be better paid. So it's not And the basic income is there. It's not to enable some people to be servants or to laze about all day long. No, it's not in order to empower the people with least power in society. But again, you need to make people understand that, of course, this gift which you are giving to everyone, this benefit, this basic income, is undeserved by these people. But all the other people who do work, who have a higher income, because of inherited wealth, but above all because of the rent accruing to their talents, to the education they could receive thanks to their family background, etc. All these people are receiving gifts that are far exceed these little gifts that are given to everyone. And so here again, it's the constant effort to explain that, to try to find the right images in order to make people understand that basic income, contrary to some appearances that are quite plausible, is an instrument for social justice. What about peace, then? The second aspect. I said, well, in some respects, certainly it's not implausible to say, no, basic income, that's not an instrument for peace. It's really a recipe for conflict. Eduardo, who's always full of good and enthusiastic advice, heard that I went in fact twice recently to Jerusalem, to Israel and Palestine, and he said, don't forget to advocate basic income as a solution to part of their problem. Well, I was going there not as an advocate of basic income, but as someone who has some views about how it is possible to live together when you have two ethnic groups, the Flemings and the Walloons in my countries, and the request there, repeated request, well, why is it that, how come that in Belgium you manage to get on more or less well together, whereas between Arabs and Jews in Palestine it's so difficult? And indeed, we haven't had a civil war since the 16th century, since William of Orange had to leave Brussels in order to go to The Hague. And it's due to this event, to our civil war in Belgium, that all these people were wearing orange T-shirts while playing football today, because that's why orange became the color of the northern countries. So perhaps if that hadn't happened, I would have been cheering with Robert today instead of letting him cheer alone for the victory of these orange guys. Anyway, we haven't had a civil war since then, and it's true that things are, despite some sensationalist news, sometimes in the foreign press, things are going far better in Belgium than they are going in Israel and Palestine. But if there is one thing that is really constantly feeding the conflict in Belgium, it's precisely redistribution from the north to the south. It's something, we don't have a basic income, but there is certainly net redistribution from the north to the south, and this is part of what feeds the conflict.